Good morning, everybody. How's everybody doing? On a Monday, September 30th. What's going on? Everybody in the chat, YouTube, Facebook, X, Rumble. Make sure you hit the like, subscribe. Good morning, everybody. Becky on YouTube. Good morning, Real Prince Doll on X. Buzzard on YouTube. Debbie on Facebook. Hammer. Good rising. Good morning. A little later than I want it to be. I actually have a busy morning. I'm going to be a little shorter this morning. I unfortunately have a funeral mass to go to. Morning, Richard on Facebook. Good morning. John on YouTube. Bonnie on Facebook. Good morning, everybody. Crazy Town Coffee. Dana on Facebook. Good morning. Brian on Facebook. Good morning, everybody. How's everyone doing? Hope everybody had a good weekend. Busy week this week, of course. Obviously, tomorrow night's the feature of the week, I would think. Although there's a lot in the news that could also take center stage this week. I mean, here we are. I think it was last Monday on this stream we talked about this port strike, and I thought, there's just no way we're going to get to next Monday. Well, here we are. And of course, Biden yesterday, if you haven't seen it, I mean, talk about just absolutely gone. Gonzo. Here's Biden yesterday. Getting out of the limo to go on the plane, and he's asked, well, first he's asked about,
Mr. President, will you deploy more U.S. troops to the Middle East?
Okay, will you deploy more troops to the Middle East? Which he says no. A couple of things about this clip that are interesting. First of all, Jill, the good doctor, I think, is at the end of her rope. I think she's just, as they say, playing out the rest of the season at this point. As you can tell in this clip, number one, she looks like she's going to the gym. And number two, if you notice, she absolutely just gets out of the car, goes right on the plane, doesn't even acknowledge him, doesn't try to hold his arm, doesn't try to stay with him. So you see her get out, and she's just done at this point. She's like, yep, see ya. I'm out of here. And so while she goes and does that, Biden gets asked about the Middle East, and then he gets asked about the port strike. He gets asked about the strikes in Yemen. He gets asked about the Israeli strikes. And here's what he says.
Mr. President, will you deploy more U.S. troops to the Middle East?
No.
Mr. President, has Netanyahu gone too far?
Any comment on the strikes in Yemen, Mr. President?
Both sides have got to settle the strike. Support the collective bargaining effort. I think they'll settle the strike.
So he says, I've talked to both sides on the strike. He's talking about the port strike. She's asking about the strikes in Yemen. He answers by saying, well, I've spoken to both sides. and we think the negotiation is going to work, whatever the hell he says there. So she's asking about strikes in Yemen. He's talking about strikes in the ports on the East Coast. I mean, just absolutely gone. Just gone. Absolutely gone. So, I mean, we talked about this strike. I never thought it would get this far because you want to talk about, and it's, I find it interesting that I've heard people now, we talked about this, I think it was, last Monday, maybe even the week before that. Zero Hedge had an article about this strike. And I said then, and when I hear people talking about this strike now, because people have picked up on it and are now talking about it, but they don't talk about how inflationary this could be. Even if it's closed for, here we are with the Fed. Fed's going to speak today, by the way. The Federal Reserve cutting rates. Some people think 50 was too much. We didn't need 50. Some people think 50 is too little. Inflation seems to be coming down. You throw this on top of that, and I mean, but I don't hear a lot of people talking about how inflationary it is. They talk about how it's going to be bad for, obviously, the ports and for goods and supply chain. Well, that's going to lead right back to inflation. But I don't hear many people, at least commentators, when they talk about this, talking about the inflation side and how you're not going to need much of a shutdown for this to probably start to affect goods that make it to the shelves. And again, if you have too many dollars chasing too few goods, well, I mean, that's the definition of inflation. So very interesting to see what happens with that. I never thought it would even get this far. See what happens by, I guess, tomorrow is the absolute deadline. I guess they go on strike tomorrow. And of course, the other big news is what's happening in North Carolina in places. The absolute, total, and utter devastation that's happening in towns. Towns gone. Towns just completely, absolutely devastated. And yes, everybody was rightly focused on Florida at first. Florida certainly had its fair share of damage as well. But what's happened in Asheville, North Carolina, and some of the surrounding little towns that you've probably never heard of. Some of it, all of it due to the weather, and then this dam breaking, and then just not being able to deal with all the water, is really unbelievable. Biden was asked, is there anything else you can do? And he says, of course, no. He hasn't gone there. She's not planning on going there. Haven't heard much talk from the administration about it. Really stunning. The Commerce Secretary was on CNBC this morning. She was asked about the port strike.
Where have you been kind of focused and hearing on what would happen if the strike goes, let's say, longer than a week?
Again, I have not been very focused on that.
Okay. Excellent. That's good. I'm not very focused on that. The Commerce Secretary has not been very focused on whether the Longshore's union employees refuse to address wage issues and are going to go on strike. Okay. Excellent. This administration is really on it, folks. Don't you worry. They're really on it. I know I haven't checked in on that. When do they go on strike? Tomorrow? Oh, all right. Well, maybe tomorrow I'll have to. So I'm surprised that's gone this long, but a couple other things. And again, I'm going to be a little shorter this morning because I got to go. But
look at where Kamala Harris is today. She's only leading by 9 points. That would be the worst Democratic performance in a generation. 10 points off the mark of Joe Biden, who, of course, won 4 years ago, was sort of that union guy, Union Joe, right? Won it by 19 points. She's 10 points off his mark, and the worst in a generation.
Yeah, a worst in a generation. Not surprising. Not surprising that she polls lousy with lots of demographics that I think we're going to find out. I think there's only one way for her to go in the last 30 days, and that's continuing to leak support, would be my guess, if I had a guess. Because how could she not be? The more time people, remember, we're working again. We're working a clock issue here that she's so behind where she normally would be, and people realizing how inept she is, and so some people are starting to catch up, and it's going to take probably right up to the election for people to get to where they would have gotten if she had been in this thing the whole time. I think by now she would have been absolutely cooked in this race. The only thing that's even kept her close is the media doing this whole revamping and the time issue. The time of the whole idea of coming out of Biden and knowing that they were dead there with him, literally, and then trying to just put a new face on her when voters have had a chance to tell us what they thought about her, and that's why she never made it to Iowa. So they've used this whole clock and the calendar thing to their advantage, but I just don't think they can make it all the way till. I don't think they can keep her where she is. I think tomorrow night, the vice presidential debate. You know, when you think about a vice presidential debate, you know, your VP nominee doesn't tend in normal years to decide elections. The question is, can they tip it one way for the top of the ticket? And that'll be the question going into tomorrow night for Waltz and for J.D. Vance as they come here to New York City. CBS hosts in what probably will be the last debate of the 2024 election season. It seems like we're not going to get another presidential one. You have voting already underway in several key states, which is why Trump said he doesn't want to, at this point, probably do another one. And so Waltz and Vance, do they go into tomorrow night with the try to do no harm, or do they go in on the offensive? And I think if you're J.D. Vance, you go in on the offensive, all guns blazing, hold nothing back. When you look at why J.D. Vance was brought on this ticket, and you look at all the swing states, and you look at the Rust Belt, and you look at all of those where we are, I think he goes in guns a-blazing. I think he goes in and makes the case. I saw a report today that Tim Waltz is, quote-unquote, nervous about having to face J.D. Vance. That's probably the most honest thing the guy said since he got into this election. That's probably the most honest thing he said since this thing started. And he should be nervous. And he's nervous for good reason. Because he is totally, as she is, inept on policy. He has no record to stand on. The state he oversees is an absolute, utter disaster. And they're not, and that's not where most of the American people are. So if I were him, I would be nervous as well. The question is, people go in expecting him to be the weaker candidate. So the question is, if Vance gives a stellar, strong performance, does it move the needle at all? Or does it just provide maybe a little momentum for the Trump campaign? But the bigger question is, if Waltz looks like a total imbecile, which I give a better than 50-50 chance that he might, other than the moderators getting him to the, which is always their job, getting him to the finish line and giving him just softball questions. I think there's a better than 50-50 chance he could come out of this looking absolutely like who we know he is, which is just inept and not a serious person at all. And I think J.D. Vance will draw a huge distinction when it comes to policy. And, the one thing you can expect from Waltz is the childish cat lady quotes and, oh, you didn't like Trump a long time ago. They'll revert to all that kind of crap. But when it comes to policy and drawing the distinction between what the two administrations would look like, you've got 50 million people watching on CBS. I think it's all advantage Vance big time in this debate. And that's why I think even though these things normally don't move the needle, I mean, I would lean that this one won't either, but I give this one a lot of opportunity that Waltz could come out of this looking really bad. I don't think there's any way. I find it hard anyway to believe that Vance comes out of this night and we think that was somehow not good for them. I'd find it hard to believe. I think he'll be so dominant on the issues. I think he'll be so dominant on just the poise and the speaking and the data and just being prepared and the subject matter. I don't I'm expecting Dan Quayle or worse on the other side. So we'll see. But that'll be fun tomorrow night. We'll be covering it, obviously, on Real America's Voice. Real America's Voice will have their own coverage of the VP debate. We'll probably do something similar to what we did before. We probably won't actually show the debate. We'll just have the audio. We'll be watching it, and we'll comment in real time. In what could be a real, it could be ugly. Could be ugly. We'll see. Markets this morning, not looking great. Final trading day of the month. Dow futures down 160 right now. That's actually a little bit better than it was before. Now 155. S&P down $1.50. NASDAQ futures are up 30. Oil down $68 a barrel now. We really should see gas prices continually coming down, with oil down to 68 and probably headed lower. 10-year Treasury 377. Gold 26.60 an ounce. It's down a little bit, but still obviously been one hell of a run. Crypto, Bitcoin down 1,800. Have no idea why, other than the chart, just the structure of where it's been, lower high after lower high after lower high. Ethereum down 34, 26.31. XRP actually moved off that 55, moved to like 65, now back down to 63. Litecoin down 3.5%. Bitcoin Cash down. These are the ones that, I don't know why these are the ones that CNBC follows, but those are the ones that CNBC follows. Looks like DirecTV clinches long elusive deal to combine with Dish Network. This will be interesting because obviously we're on Dish Network. So I don't know what this deal means. DirecTV on Monday agreed to buy EchoStar satellite television business that includes Dish TV, capping decades of on and off talks to create one of the nation's largest paid TV distributors with combined 20 million subscribers. I mean, that number is so down from where the numbers on satellites used to be now, obviously, as people have gone to OTT more and more. Roku's, Apple TV, Amazon Fire, Pluto TV, all the other options. You have YouTube TV. Combined 20 million subscribers for the two of them is, well, that's why they're combining, because eventually, without combining, they're going to be out of business, because that number is, in itself, even combined, very low. The transaction comes at a time when satellite TV services are hemorrhaging market share to competitors like Netflix, Amazon Prime, which have benefited from changing consumer habits. Yeah, the changing consumer habits are they don't need to spend. When you had DirecTV back in the day, some of us who had the NFL package were spending like $200 a month, and we were watching one channel, and that's what people have wised up to. They want to just pay a la carte now. They want to pay for what they watch. That's it. DirecTV CEO Bill Morrow told Reuters the combined pay TV company would have the clout to negotiate smaller programming packages tailored to consumers' interests. That's going to be a dying industry over time still. It also plans to offer an improved viewer experience that makes it easier for subscribers to find their favorite shows. So there you go. DirecTV, Dish Network combining. And we'll see how long that lasts. Interesting to see how if it affects us at all. If we get some more eyeballs, because obviously we're on Dish, so I'm assuming we will continue to be on this combined entity. So we'll see what happens there. Again, more on the port strikes. Scrambling to move billions in cargo before midnight shutdown. I mean, maybe there's something I'm missing here, but I just cannot believe that this administration, this close out to an election, with inflation coming down, with the Fed cutting rates, wants to let this happen. They are not more involved with trying to get this done. Because this seems to me now, maybe we won't, maybe they just feel like people won't feel this again before the election, so they're willing to take a chance. But boy, oh boy, does this seem inflationary to me. Big. If you want one way to spike inflation back up, this would. I don't know how you think of a better one than this. You shut down the supply chain again, and that's what started all of this. The remaining hours are critical in moving out as much trade as possible before a shutdown that will do serious damage to the functioning U.S. economy. Again, I don't know what I'm missing here, but I am shocked that this, well, I guess I'm not shocked. There's no leadership, and the guy at the top is totally cooked. But I can't imagine that they want this to go on.
A strike by the International Longshoremen's Association is set to hit ports on the U.S. East Coast and Gulf of Mexico tomorrow. Joining us now to discuss the potential disruption to the country's supply chains, David Kiesling, Vice President of Transportation Management at Kenco Group. This is, you expect this to happen, I guess, David, at this point? It's going to be tough to avert.
Yes, I don't think that there's been anything in the last 24 hours that says that either side is ready to negotiate. And I think, at the end of the day today, we'll see some activity tomorrow morning.
What's the total percentage of goods that are covered by the ports that are going to see strikers across the U.S.? Can the slack be taken up by other ports?
Well, I think one of the things that we've seen, and, we are really focused on some leading and some lagging indicators, right, is that volume has already shifted to the West Coast. And our lead indicators are showing that over the last 4 or 5 weeks, we've seen container volume and vessel volume be similar to that of the peak in 2021 and 2022, which is almost 20,000 TEUs daily that have been handled by the West Coast ports. But historically, about 45% of the volume that is imported in the United States comes through, ports that would be affected by a work stoppage along the East Coast.
Is that one of the downsides for the ports affected? That does any of that shift become permanent, and does that taken into the calculus of the strikers?
I think that's an interesting thing, right? When you look at the industries that are affected, clearly automotive industry is affected, automotive assembly components in particular, right? There's apparel that has been affected. The whole Panama Canal was, widened and deepened so that these large ships could get from, the far west to the East Coast to, eliminate that leg of internal movement inside of the United States or through the United States. So, automotive apparel and lastly, pharmaceutical and, the normal actions that are taken for the automotive assembly plants, because we moved to a global just-in-time, production model, is that they may air freight in the short term. They may also pull forward some of those scheduled shutdowns. Obviously from an apparel standpoint, it's more specialty retail rather than general merchandise like T-shirts, socks and underwear, right? And then pharmaceuticals, there's a big impact there because we need to monitor closely how that might impact patient care. But also, let's not forget about exports.
All right, well, so there you go. You get an idea of what's going to, it's just shocking that this is where it's at. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. All right, let's take a look at what you guys are talking about. Port workers now earn a base pay of $39 an hour, just over $81,000 a year, but with overtime and other benefits, some can make in excess of $200,000 annually. Okay. If the ports strike, this will be a huge jump for Trump. Well, the calculus there is, again, whether people realize how it's going to affect them, and if they put the blame on the current administration, which two things I guess are still questionable. Early morning Rav suggested Vance should keep bringing up Harris and how they support bad policies. Yeah, listen, I think he's gonna I think he'll take every opportunity he can. Vance will. I mean, let's be real here. And again, this is not. I mean, Trump will be Trump. We all know that. Vance will be much more disciplined than Trump could ever be. That's just their nature. It's not a good thing, not a bad thing. That's just the facts. Vance will be very, very structured, disciplined, and I am sure nothing will get by him policy-wise. He will not get rattled. Waltz will not rattle him because he won't, Waltz is not going to talk about his rallies and people leaving Trump rallies and stuff like that. Vance will be laser focused on policy. He will be laser focused on drawing the distinction between the two administrations. There is no doubt about that at all. So I do think he'll take whatever opportunities he can to talk directly to him, to point out the differences, to put him on his heels. He will have I'll be shocked if he has any problem doing that. I mean, what at this point actually would be a surprise given what we've seen. I'm not sure that anything could qualify as a surprise. What would qualify as a surprise at this point? Waltz will sink himself, let Waltz talk. I think there's a very good chance that could happen, and I think he will. You saw the way Waltz was welcomed at the Michigan-Minnesota game as compared to Trump at the Alabama-Georgia game. Now, obviously, Alabama-Georgia, it's home turf. You would expect him, but still. You would think Michigan would be home turf for him up there in Minnesota, obviously. Not quite. Well, Shelley, I mean, it's not really my opinion. I think it's just the facts of what's going to happen if they don't reach a deal by, I guess, tonight, midnight tonight. I wouldn't hold my breath for, I don't know, again, what your definition of fair is. I wouldn't hope for that. Exactly. Yeah, Trump's reception was pretty wild. Good point. Exactly. He will not be thrown off his game. That's for sure. That is absolutely for sure. A couple other things I noticed just to touch on. In John Solomon's Just the News. COVID vaccines worsen outcomes after heart attacks in patients with prior infection. Global research already suggests the risk of COVID-19 infection rises with each mRNA vaccine dose and a higher risk of heart inflammation in jabbed and young people, especially males who face a low risk from COVID itself. Now, a 3-year study of nearly 1,000 heart attack patients at a hospital in Spain, published in a peer-reviewed Elsevier journal this month, suggests vaccination makes them far more likely to have major adverse cardiovascular events, including death within 6 months of their heart attack, especially when they've also recovered from a COVID infection. I mean, again, the evidence at this point is so overwhelming of the damage done by these. We've talked about it for 3.5 years. We're going to continue to get reports like this that just confirm what we've been talking about for 3.5 years. And seemingly nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody wants to hold people responsible for this. Nobody wants to talk about it anymore. I mean, I continually called it the issue of our time, and people just want to just put it in the closet and close the door. Besides people like Fauci, fine. How about Deborah Birx? How about people that we know now just literally made stuff up just to try to scare the public? Did things just because, with no reasoning behind it. And they're just going to go right off into the sunset while these reports come out year after year after year of the damage done to people's lives, damage done to young people. And none of these people are ever going to face any consequences for getting up in front of millions of people every day in the press briefings and making stuff up, literally making it up with the goal of scaring people. Is absolutely crazy. So that over in Just the News today, if you want to check that out. One more thing, and I'm going to have to go. All we hear about is all of these, so-called rhino Republicans who are endorsing Kamala. Now Jeff, I'm so appropriately named Flake, is the latest one. And you've got the 51 intelligence officers, and you've always got these groups of people they like to point to. Oh, 200 of this, 51. Well, here's one. More than 200 retired admirals and generals. I think I'd rather have them than Jeff Flake from Arizona or some other loser Republican who's never really been a Republican, or the George Bush type Republicans, Romney, Flake, Kinzinger, all these losers. I think I'd rather have retired admirals and generals who actually understand what's going on in the world and say, yeah, this is the guy who needs to be the commander-in-chief. So just to point that out, because this will get absolutely no coverage whatsoever, zero coverage. This group is Flag Officers for America, issued a stinging indictment of the failed policies of Biden and Harris, and they endorsed former President Trump. So I'll put this on our socials. I think I've put everything else on our socials already. There we go. That's on our socials now. So you could share that, because all you hear about is this group and that group supported Trump. Oh, this group and oh, that group. Well, here's a group. So, last thing, if you haven't gone over to the website, check out our new sponsor. Please do so. We've got a great line of stuff. First of all, love the name, Freedom with the American flag and the logo. Multivitamin for men, multivitamin for women, probiotics, vitamin K2, D3, so important. I take it every morning. You got to have the K2 in with the D3. That's the important part. You got a sleep supplement, brain support, which of course I need, magnesium, omega-3 fish oil supplement, hair vitamin gummies. I didn't realize how many women like these hair vitamin gummies, and it's not necessarily because you're losing your hair. My wife has these on the counter. I'm like, you're not losing your hair, and she's like, yeah, stupid, it's more than that. And again, multivitamins and more coming. So go out, check out livefromstudio6b.com, our new Freedom Force Nutrition. Great line of stuff. All capsulated here in the U.S. Capsulated in the U.S., FDA registered and GMP certified facilities. It undergoes third-party lab testing, non-GMO, lactose-free. So just really great stuff. We worked on this for a long time to bring them on. So I think you're going to really like it. Everything's packaged beautifully. All the supplement facts are there. So head over to livefromstudio6b.com. If you take supplements, you might want to check these out. Very good. And that's about it, folks. I unfortunately have to go to a funeral service for one of my very close neighbors here where we live. Our close friend's father passed away, so I'm going to head out to there. But again, big week. This could be a big week. Could be a big week in the economy. The Fed's speaking today. If I'm back in time, I may actually live stream that. I think it's like 1 o'clock or so. The Fed will be speaking on what he sees going on in the economy. So market's already a little bit on edge this morning. So we'll see what happens with that. A lot of events this week. Obviously, President Trump speaking, J.D. Vance speaking. But, of course, tomorrow night's really the feature of the week. And that, of course, is the vice presidential debate, which we will be covering on live-from-studio6b.com, which they will be covering on Real America's Voice. And we'll see. We will see what happens. So let me give one more look of the comments here. I got to check out, and yeah, these, check them out. They're good. Good stuff. Thank you, everybody who's saying sorry. I will pass those condolences along. Condolences along. Thank you. Don Jr. and Corey Lewandowski appearing in Plymouth, Michigan today. Vance and Auburn Hills on Wednesday. Todd, thank you very much. Trump will be on today around 1 Central. Let me look at the official. I have access actually to the official calendar. I'll tell you what's going on event-wise today. Events. Today is the 30th. Trump will deliver remarks to the press in Georgia at 2 p.m. That's today. Kennedy Jr. and Dr. Phil McGraw in Philadelphia at 2 p.m. So Robert Kennedy Jr. is with Dr. Phil in Philadelphia at 2 p.m. Trump will deliver remarks to the press in Georgia at 2 p.m. That's all I see today. Obviously, tomorrow, Trump will deliver remarks in Wisconsin at 2:30. Then he'll deliver remarks in Milwaukee at 6 p.m. And then, obviously, we have the debate. So that's what I have for today and tomorrow. Damon, am I streaming Trump? Again, I'm at 2 p.m. If it's public, I'll stream it, yeah. I'm going to stream the Fed as well if I get back in time. So I'll most likely be on this afternoon. It's somewhere in that 12, 1, 2 range, what's going on. I got to wait and see what's available. All networks work to bash Trump. Does Rav ever think of joining forces with like Newsmax and others to spread the word? Stupid idea? Well, there's no stupid ideas. But I mean, I think both of them are, I have no idea about the other. I don't really know much about Newsmax, but I think they're pretty much doing the same thing. I don't know about joining forces, but yeah, you can always go to donaldtrump.com/events if you want to check out the schedule. I have an internal schedule that I look at, but you can look at that one. That's the public one. All right, folks. Sorry for the shorter stream, but I do have to go. But I will be back this afternoon once this is done, and I'll be back. And like I said, I think it's the Fed around 1 or so, Trump around 2. If Trump's remarks are obviously out and available, and there's a pool reporter and a camera there, we'll obviously take them as well. Make sure you head over to livefromstudio6b.com. If you can, sign up as a member. It's absolutely free. Check out some of the great stuff. Again, you got all the shows there. All my morning streams are there. All the clips we put up are there. All the full shows are there. Friday show right here. And you can go through the tab and go through all the clips. Anything I stream is there. President's press conference from last Monday right here. So it all automatically goes up there. Like I said, brand new health and wellness supplement sponsor, Freedom Force Nutrition, is there. Check them out. And then again, all the live shows, news. And then, of course, obviously, you've got all the merch as well on the site. New arrivals, Kevin Downey Jr. shirt, still available in stock as well as you start thinking about shopping for the holidays. Give us a look. We appreciate it. Head on over, livefromstudio6b.com. And yeah, that's a wrap. So I'll see you this afternoon, probably around 12, 1 o'clock, something like that. And then the president at 2. We'll see if we can find those. And then I'll see you tonight, 8 p.m. on Live from Studio 6B. All right? All right, everybody. Thanks for joining me. Have a great morning, great rest of your Monday. I'll see you hopefully this afternoon, and then we'll see you tonight. And thanks for joining me this morning. We'll see you later.